For those looking for a liberatory martial arts learning approach and curriculum, we've created Liberation Martial Arts. It doesn't just teach you martial arts, it's also a radical and alternative approach to learning. Thanks to Bells, Lewis, Rockfact, the red spot on the planet Saturn comes from Luffy Red Hawk punching Saint Saturn so hard he got a planetussi. DJ and Akil for signing up. Sign up for Liberation Martial Arts at the Southpaw Pod Patreon or support us by signing up for one of our other tiers. This will give you access to bonus content, transcripts, and uncut versions of our shows without breaks or interruptions. Those in the Patreon sponsor tier also get a monthly training session with me. If you prefer to support others, your sponsorship can go to the training of an organizer instead. There's also ways to make one-time contributions. Find all our links at southpawpod.com. This is Sam.
And this is Fight Study.
RWS 200 just happened. If you haven't watched it, go find it on YouTube and watch it. You will thank me. Now, unlike other stadium Muay Thai shows, RWS is an international fight league that caters to an international audience. It really grew out of the COVID-19 lockdown. Rather than relying on in-person attendance, they went for an international online audience. Gamblers figured out how to gamble online during this period, which meant they had less of an influence on how the fights were fought, from pacing to even how they were scored and even the rules. Without the influence of gamblers, you didn't have 2 rounds of feeling out where gamblers could figure out who they wanted to bet on. And without gamblers, RWS began to enforce the pre-existing rules about dumps and sweeps. They also hired English-speaking announcers and commentators to not only draw in an international audience, but also to educate them. It's just much more professional than something like the UFC, while still maintaining many of the Thai traditions like the pre-fight ceremonies, blessings, post-fight rituals, and traditional garb. The most fun for me is watching how different gyms from different countries interpret Muay Thai. From gym to gym within Thailand, Muay Thai will look different, but it still looks Thai. There's still a shared vision of what Muay Thai is. You really didn't notice those similarities until you saw more international fighters come to RWS. Then you realized all those Thai styles of Muay Thai had more in common than they did with styles from other countries. So even though it's not like MMA where it's striker versus grappler, the strikers have such contrasting styles in RWS that it still scratches that itch where you want to see what drastically different styles will look like if they fought. There are also other differences when compared to boxing, kickboxing, or MMA. Like the breaks are 2 minutes instead of 1. Women fight 2-minute rounds with 2-minute breaks. The long breaks really favor foreign fighters, in my opinion, because foreign fighters are more used to big weight cuts. The downside to weight cuts is that it saps your energy. But if you get 2-minute breaks, there's no advantage to being the smaller fighter who barely cuts weight. You're also allowed to skin your gloves, meaning you can wrap tape around the cuff of your gloves and keep squeezing the foam up until you have a really wound ball at the end of your fist. You can also use pure tape for your hand wraps, which is illegal in boxing. You're allowed to be completely wet before and during the fight, which isn't legal in other combat sports because it would make strikes just slide off of you. You can have oil all over your body, which also isn't legal. So what happens when you get punched and kicked when you're this wet? You get some really dramatic visuals of water flying everywhere. You're also less likely to get cut. You can clinch, but you're so slippery it's hard to stay in clinch. So it allows for clinch, but there are things baked into Muay Thai that prevent you from hugging forever. This is also where the ref comes in. Unlike stadium Muay Thai, the refs are really good about keeping the action going, while also being much more protective of fighters than you're used to in MMA. The long breaks allow the fighters to come in recharged and at their most technical. This avoids sloppy brawls. There's also open scoring, so the audience and the fighters know exactly what's going on. No funny business. Teams are aware of the urgency. If you're only used to MMA, how strikes are scored in RWS might also take some getting used to. UFC commentators have really trained their audience to only care about volume. Spamming strikes pays in MMA. In RWS, it's more about clean shots, especially to the head and body. If you block a kick with your arms, it still counts as a strike landed. This isn't the case in MMA or kickboxing. But think about it. Why does a kick to the leg score, but not a kick to the arm, which is weaker than the legs? So there's actually a lot of wisdom to Muay Thai scoring. So with the introduction to RWS out of the way, let's talk about the first prelim fight. It was Albert Campos versus Oscar Fonseca. It was a real mismatch. Fonseca just didn't seem dialed in for an RWS level match, and Campos really dominated in this fight, just landing at will. Fonseca showed his toughness, but you never want to show that because that means you were getting beat up. But Fonseca, despite coming from a Muay Thai gym, is an MMA fighter. The gym might even specialize in MMA. So that made the fight far less odd because Fonseca kind of fought like an MMA fighter and had the MMA toughness, but his range and reads all felt off. But it was an action-packed fight to kick things off, and Fonseca definitely had his moments. Then in the second prelim, it was Award Kazimba versus Gonzalo Albenagorta. This was a really good back-and-forth action-packed fight that ended in a split decision with both fighters dropping each other. Gonzalo started out strong, dropping Award in the first. Award was the taller and longer fighter who had dynamic kicks and knees. But to throw dynamic kicks and knees, you need to load them up. Gonzalo did a good job of preventing that by constantly pressuring and striking. You can't be dynamic on your heels. But the question was, could he keep that up? And he really couldn't. The second round was close, but by the third round, Gonzalo was eating all those kicks and knees. He needed to keep Award on the back foot, but he couldn't. Award also showed great composure with his comeback. It's really hard to win a fight if you've been dropped. And RWS fighters are really hard to drop, especially because, as I said, everyone is so slippery. But when Award saw his openings, he took full advantage and won a really close fight. And again, amazing visuals in slow-mo with the water splashing everywhere, like a movie highlight. When the fights are this close and fun, RWS has a habit of having fighters rematch, so we might see these two fighters again. Then, in the first main card fight, it was Dmitry Menshikov versus Emerson Bento. Bento is a former Rajadamnern champion, but Menshikov, like many Russian fighters, has really good boxing and heavy hands. And despite the level of opposition, it took just seconds for Menshikov to find Bento with his hands and put him away. The level of boxing the Russian fighters are bringing to Muay Thai is just scary. And it's not just the Russians. The Japanese and the Chinese are also showing prowess with their hands, which is a great segue to the next fight, which is an interim title fight between current Rise kickboxing champion Koki Osaki versus Chaiton. Japanese kickboxers, like Japanese boxers, have great hands. Osaki has sharp, fast, heavy hands. Knockout was probably his only path to victory. I couldn't see him winning on points. He didn't have elbows. He didn't have an offensive clinch. He blocks kicks with his arms, but he's a great finisher. Once he caught Chaiton out of position, he made him pay. And once Chaiton was hurt, Osaki just couldn't miss. Power and speed. Finishing is its own skill because fighters often get so excited they start missing badly. So Osaki showed his experience. Osaki was already cut in round 1, but in the end, Chaiton ended up being the one who couldn't make it out of the first round. Osaki is now a double champion in both Rise and RWS. I don't think that's ever happened before. Also, there have been Japanese Muay Thai champions before, but they were Muay Thai fighters. Osaki won as a kickboxer who mostly just kickboxed, even in this fight. So he essentially won a Muay Thai title with just kickboxing. It was a great clash of styles. Then in another title fight, it was Jigsaw versus Duan Cacao. Duan Cacao was moving up in weight to fight Jigsaw again for his RWS flyweight title. The fight delivered. Each round was close. Duan Cacao really chewed up Jigsaw's legs and pressed Jigsaw back. If it were MMA style scoring, the fight could have been scored a lot closer. But in Muay Thai scoring, it was Jigsaw who clearly won with more diversity of strikes, better defense, cleaner shots, and more shots to vital body parts. Duan Cacao, however, showed new wrinkles to Muay Thai and the influence of international fighters because he mixed in a lot of calf kicks that were clearly hurting Jigsaw. But because of the size difference, he just didn't have the reach to catch him with his big shots. Calf kicks give outmatched fighters a fighting chance. But sometimes that's all it is, a chance. Which brings me to the main event. Daniel Rodriguez versus Angel Bauza. Rodriguez is currently the longest reigning RWS champion, and Bauza, despite being a late replacement fighter, is still a good fighter. He also tried the calf kick strategy to chop the better fighter down. But the thing about spamming is it becomes predictable. Daniel used his diversity to land a head kick that Bauza thought was a body kick, and that's all it took. Bauza made a good showing of himself for 2 rounds, despite losing them. But within seconds of the third, his strategy was too repetitive. The thing about calf kicks is you kind of have to get close to land them. And the angle doesn't allow you to slip away from punches like kicks to the thigh or body can. So Bauza's strategy was to block the body kick with his arms and counter with a calf kick. And he was doing that throughout the fight. So Daniel mixed in head kicks and caught Bauza as he was planning ahead for the counter rather than staying in the moment. Calf kicks, especially in Muay Thai, are a dangerous game. They take time to invest in, and it eventually pays off, or you end up taking too much damage while trying to destroy that leg. It works better in MMA because the small gloves incentivizes fighters to punch. It's the easiest path to finishing a fight. And when you punch, you stand heavy on your lead leg. And when you stand so heavy on it, it gets chewed up by calf kicks. In Muay Thai, you don't stand as heavy on your lead leg because you want the option to lift it up to check or kick. Overall, this was a great card. I'm also thinking about analyzing grappling events or specific grappling matches in the future. We've been grappling a lot in the LMA Learning Lab and thought about what it would look like to use the same lens we've been using for MMA and now Muay Thai for submission grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But no promises. Now, if you like my analysis and want to train with me, I have an online curriculum called Liberation Martial Arts. Just like how I try to get viewers to think about fights differently, the curriculum is designed to get practitioners to think about their own fighting differently, as well as the whole process of learning martial arts. I also offer remote coaching for individuals and clubs. Individuals and coaches have been consistently coming to learn from me in person or online for years now, so I must be doing something right. You can find Liberation Martial Arts and other links at southpawpod.com. With all that said, thanks for listening and catch you all next time.